Welcome back to the Foundry by Forge College. I'm your host, and today's explainer is basically a bona fide detective story. We are going to learn exactly how to hunt down those really elusive bugs hiding inside our smart contracts. So picture this. We're putting on our trench coats, grabbing the magnifying glasses, and stepping right into the incredibly meticulous world of testing and debugging multisig logic. All right, let's dive right in.
So, in our previous lesson on role management, we did a great job separating our proposers from our approvers, right? We laid down the law. But here is the million-dollar question, and I mean that literally since we're dealing with crypto wallets here. You built the roles, but do they actually work in the absolute chaos of the real world? Like, what exactly happens when two bosses try to turn their keys and open the vault door at the exact same millisecond? Honestly, chaos. Chaos is what happens, unless you've planned for it.
Okay, here's our blueprint for today's investigation. First up, why we must test. Second, setting up your lab. Third, the debugging workflow. Fourth, common multisig bugs. Fifth, the debug report. And finally, number 6, preparing for advanced security. All right, let's kick things off with section 1, why we must test. Now, you might be sitting there thinking your only role modifiers are totally enough to keep you secure. Spoiler alert, they aren't. Role checks alone absolutely do not account for bad timing, reentrancy attacks, or those incredibly sneaky off-by-one math errors. So I want you to try this mindset shift. Think of tests as executable specifications. They aren't just some chore, or a checklist you run once just to make your boss happy. No, they are the actual living documentation of how your contract is intended to behave. When a test fails, that's just the code talking to you. It's literally telling you exactly where your expectations and reality have violently collided.
Moving right along to section 2, setting up your lab.
Listen, every good detective needs a solid forensic toolkit before they even step foot onto a crime scene. Our Bug Hunters toolkit includes Node.js, Hardhat, Ethers.js, and Chai or Mocha. You can think of these as your magnifying glasses, your fingerprint dusting powders, and your evidence bags. By using a local Hardhat node, for example, we get what we call deterministic runs. This means we can recreate the exact same crime scene under the exact same conditions over and over again until we finally crack the case.
But here's the thing, tools outside the contract, they aren't always enough. Sometimes we need inside informants. Enter deterministic test helpers. These are small test-only view functions, something like getApprovalCount, that you write directly into your contract just to expose internal state. Now don't worry, they don't compromise security, but they do let your tests take a little peek inside the vault without relying on messy private storage assumptions. They're absolutely vital for reconstructing the crime.
Okay, let's jump into section 3, the debugging workflow.
Our standard operating procedure here is a super simple but very rigorous 3-step process. 1. Reproduce. 2. Diagnose. 3. Fix. First, you corner the bug so it happens every single time. Then you diagnose exactly how it works. And finally, you apply the patch. And this is crucial. You absolutely refuse to move on to step 3 until step 1 is happening reliably. Make sense?
So to diagnose effectively, we use what's called a state snapshot. Basically, this means capturing the exact state of the contract immediately before and after an action. It's kind of like taking a high-definition photograph of the vault, letting your suspects go up and touch it, and then taking another photograph. Any difference you spot between the two? Boom, that's your fingerprint. Let's actually look at a concrete case study here. We'll call it the approval race. Imagine 2 signers submit their approvals at almost the exact same time. The expected state? Well, the approval count should obviously be 2. But the bug state? The approval count is coming back as only 1. We have a glaring contradiction here. One of our approvals literally vanished into thin air. But why? Let's investigate the usual suspects. Which brings us perfectly to section 4, common multisig bugs. Mapping these mysterious symptoms to their actual root causes is a really massive part of what we teach in the smart contract development courses over at Forge College. Consider this your suspect lineup matrix. If your approval count is stuck at 1, the likely cause is a bitmap overwrite, and the quick fix is to use a bitwise OR. If your transaction ID is coming back undefined, you're probably reading the raw transaction response instead of parsing the receipt events. And if your execution reverts despite having all the right approvals, well, you've likely fallen victim to an off-by-1 error in your quorum calculation.
Let's actually break down that first one.
An approval bitmap is an incredibly efficient way to store data where single bits represent signer approvals. But if you use an equal sign, a standard assignment, you accidentally overwrite the previous signer's data. You're basically wiping their fingerprint right off the page. Instead, you absolutely need to use a bitwise OR operation. Think of it like stamping a shared document with your official seal rather than throwing the entire document in the trash and replacing it with a brand new one that only has your seal. Okay, the crucial point on our next suspect, the missing TXID, or transaction identifier. Honestly, a lot of bug hunters fail right here because they look at the wrong piece of evidence. They look at the raw transaction object that they just sent, instead of waiting for the transaction to actually be mined so they can extract the ID from the parsed receipt events. You've got to wait for the receipt, folks.
And then we have quorum, the minimum number of required signatures. The crazy thing is you can have perfectly valid approvals, a beautifully functioning bitmap, and your vault will still stay locked absolutely tight if your threshold math is off by just one single digit. Always, always use explicit comparisons in your threshold logic to avoid falling into this trap.
All right, wrapping up our investigation with Section 5, the debug report.
So you found the bug, you fix it, great. But a true detective doesn't just catch the culprit. They build an airtight case file for the prosecutor. Your final dossier absolutely must include the failing test outputs, the state snapshots you used to isolate the issue, the applied code changes or diffs, and finally, the updated passing test that proves your fix actually works. This report is literally your proof of continuous security.
And finally, Section 6, preparing for advanced security. Now, you might be wondering, why are we being so obsessive about all of this? Because you simply cannot build a skyscraper on a cracked foundation. A fully debugged multisig is the absolute required foundation for advanced techniques like time locks, guardian recovery patterns, and meta-transactions. Seriously, if your base layer can't handle two simultaneous signers without completely crashing, adding a time lock is just going to make the inevitable explosion even more spectacular. The detective work we do today makes the upgrades of tomorrow possible. I want to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought. Are your invariants being continuously enforced, or is your contract just getting lucky? Look, tests take the luck out of the equation entirely. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I highly encourage you to head over to forge.college to learn more about Web3 security, access our full range of learning materials, and continue your development journey. Until next time, keep your code clean and your tests deterministic.